because each one of these chemicals out of the 90,000, glyphosate, which is a pesticide, also known as RoundUp, that's very popular, common. It is the world's leading herbicide or weed killer in the world. And it has an enormous number of health effects. We've seen it in the news. We saw these major legal payouts there was a landscaping worker at a school who worked at a school for many, many years who developed a type of lymphoma, or I think it was a lymphoma, and he got paid $58 million. Of course, he was dying. But we now know that Monsanto has been or will be paying out, I think Bayer now owns Monsanto, millions and millions of dollars in costs to, for people who are dying from exposure to glyphosate. Now, glyphosate or Roundup is bought at a big box store. I see it at the checkout counter, and it breaks my heart. I ended up starting to, give lectures at the checkout counter and probably have security called on me. But it's so important for people to understand that these are developed as neurotoxins. Many of these pesticides, they're meant, especially insecticides, they're meant to actually go and cause brain damage to fleas, ticks, many of the living creatures. But in terms of the plant material, they do affect a whole pathway in the human body that can really generate harmful problems. And so cancers are one of them, but they're also known as endocrine disruptors. So we know that glyphosate has effects on the human endocrine system, like many other chemicals that are called endocrine disruptors, and, affect hormones. Hormones are the signalers in the human body that help grow us, that make us, be able to have children. So fertility hormones, growth and development, thyroid hormone, insulin is a hormone for sugar processing. We know in utero hormones create brains in a fetus. So there's just so many reasons why hormones, which are so sensitive and work at such a parts per million, parts per trillion level, so tiny, tiny, tiny amounts, these chemicals can disrupt or mimic many of those hormones. And so in short, glyphosate can do the same thing. In addition to cancers, it is considered a probable cancer under the IARC, International Agency for Research on Cancer. Actually, I believe it's a possible cancer, and they're trying to move it to probable, if I'm correct. So, and that's just an ABCD listing, but essentially it's really not. Now, it's being removed from the Mexican, Mexico just removed it as an allowable pesticide. Europe is considering it. We know parks in Miami have all removed it from public parks. New York City is actually considering removing it from all public parks. So this is a trend that I think is going to happen across the country. I think we're going to see the end of Roundup and glyphosate across the US and maybe Europe. But what's problematic, again, back to that original issue, is that substitute chemicals are still being flushed into the system. 1,000 new compounds a year are added to the US market. 15 new polymers are getting patented every week. Wow. So it's a hard thing to keep up with. And that's why the recommendations in non-toxics start with don't buy it to begin with. If you don't buy a lot of these products to begin with, you're not bringing them in your home, into your life, into the bodies of your body, into your children's bodies, your pets. And so really a lot of it is very cost effective because you're just not buying stuff to begin with.